Welcome to a new episode of the Social Impact Journal, the podcast where I talk to the innovators and experts driving positive change in our world. Today, I'm delighted to be with Henri Dommel, the Director of Inclusive Digital Economies at the United Nations Capital Development Fund. We'll be exploring the role of digital financial inclusion in driving climate mitigation and adaptation. Henri, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
It's a really pleasure to have you. We're recording here in Dubai, coming towards the end of the COP28 conference. So I'm looking forward to exploring how UNCDF is driving so many different initiatives. So I understand you are the Director of Inclusive Digital Economies, but what has been your career journey to date to get to this position?
Thanks again for having me here. So my journey actually started at UNCDF, the beginning of my career. I was at UNCDF and helped to develop the microfinance practice and portfolio. And after that, I moved for a few years to another UN agency based in Rome called the International Fund for Agricultural Development, where I was a senior rural finance advisor before coming back to UNCDF as a director of the Inclusive Digital Economies quite a few years ago now.
Awesome. So working in microfinance for UNCDF at the start of your career, what was that period like?
Well, I think it was a very exciting time because it was a time where there were emerging best practices. So CGAP, consultative group to assist the poorest at the World Bank, had been created. We became a member. We worked very closely with them. So we really tried to develop a very solid approach and practice to really professionalize our intervention around microfinance. But as you know, the field has evolved since, and we have seen the transition from microfinance to inclusive finance to actually the acceleration through digital finance. And now we recognize that digital finance is contributing to the emergence of inclusive digital economies, or economies that we want to be inclusive, so we have to really focus on that. And so it has been an incredible journey, and a journey that I've been really supporting UNCDF throughout, and during most of my career.
Awesome. So UNCDF, the United Nations Capital Development Fund, what is the key role and vision for the organization?
So we have a capital investment mandate. So we have a flexibility to use a wide range of instruments. So performance-based grant with the private sector, a lot of flexibility to work with the private sector, which is a great asset to support innovation, but also use of blended finance instrument, concessional loan, guarantees. And then we have a deep specialization in certain areas, including digital finance and now more and more digital economy solution. The DNA of our approach is supporting a market system approach. So getting a holistic view, how to address a systemic constraint that prevent the adoption of digital finance solution at scale and supporting digital economies. And that market system approach is embedded into 4 work streams. This is why I'm mentioning the term holistic. So looking at the policy and regulatory constraints around digital finance adoption, but at the same time looking at the kind of infrastructure side, the last mile connectivity, the digital rail, where we really try to see how we can fill the gap, especially in least developed countries. The third pillar is around innovation with the private sector, which is really important because that is really driving the solution at scale in those countries. And finally, work stream we call Empower Customer, which is looking at making sure that digital finance solution and digital economy solution are including and really serving especially the vulnerable and marginalized population that we are focusing on.
And is there a geographical, focus for UNCDF in the countries that you work or the regions?
So, CDF by mandate is working mostly in least developed countries, so 47 countries, mostly in sub-Saharan Africa, and some countries in Asia and in the Pacific, which are, categorized as a least developed countries. So we work mostly there, not uniquely, but, most of our activities are focused on those countries.
Awesome. And you mentioned a few things around digital obstacles, let's say, around connectivity. So how important is that to the initiatives and to your partnerships, the importance of connectivity?
Well, the deployment of digital finance solution at scale kind of requires the fact that you have those digital rail. So the existence of interoperable payment system or some of the infrastructure related issues related to IDs, related to data protection related to, I mean, there are some important issues around the kind of infrastructure around digital solution that are prerequisite to the deployment of digital finance solution. So that's what we consider as important areas for us to look at.
Yeah, and I guess digital literacy as well, with ever increasing digital platforms out there for consumers now to access those services and actually use them. How important is digital literacy, and what stance does UNCDF have in improving knowledge?
So I think digital literacy, is key. I think you rightly pointed out. Technology is neutral, so digital solution can widen the gap of access as it can reduce it. It's just a question of intent and focus. And this is a reason why we have a dedicated work stream on empowered customer, which is really looking at how the population we try to reach can benefit from accessing and using those digital financial services. So we have a dedicated work stream on that. The way we engage with the private sector is always around what we call this client-centric design approach. So we really try to understand the constraint, opportunities, and needs of those segment of the population we want to reach, and embed that in the design of the program. And sometimes we have, a program dedicated and focused on digital skill and digital literacy. So, ironically, 2 days ago, we just approved in our internal review committee a new program in Ghana around digital skills and the transition from school to work, and how to equip the young generation with the kind of skill they will need to be able to be employable, but also to start their own business.
No, I think that's huge. So it's from school to work. So that's what age demographic? 16 to. So
you're right. I think 16 to depend on the countries. The adults can start at 25 or 28 or sometime even a little bit older. But what's interesting there is a history of CDF working around youth and really focusing initially on building assets, savings, and making them client of financial institutions so that they can start to build assets, and then transition into a wider range of services when they go into adulthood and access credit and others. So we had a program quite a while ago now called Youth Start, which was focusing on kind of including youth with appropriate financial services, and again focusing on savings when they on the younger age. But which now has been kind of mainstream in our strategy, and we have now a strong focus on youth as well in a range of intervention that we are doing.
Wow. So I want to delve into a few of UNCDF's current initiatives.
Sure.
And touch on a few pillars. So the first is on insurance.
Yes.
So I think everyone in the sector understands the importance of insurance and climate disaster risk financing and insurance products. So I know Pacific Island nations is where you've done a lot of work and had some really fantastic results. So please do share with us what's been going on in the Pacific with UNCDF on that project.
So, we had a dedicated program in the Pacific called PCAP, promoting parametric risk insurance for vulnerable population. For us, insurance is very important because in the face of climate change and increased vulnerability of especially the low-income population, there is a real risk of complete depletion of assets and savings, and really defeating the entire kind of achievement of financial inclusion because of climate change. So protecting vulnerable population through the appropriate products is very important. So in the Pacific, we have had a long history around insurance, but we have really dedicated more focus on that through this program, PCAP, which have tested the deployment of parametric risk insurance through a market system approach to reach a vulnerable population. And I think what I'm very excited about is that I think it's one of the first programs which is adopting a market system approach, working with private sector companies to develop the right product, delivered through mobile wallets. So really looking at how to make it an effective delivery mechanism to be able to receive the payment following the climate the climate catastrophe. And what's also exciting about it is it has been tested. So we have had payments following climate incidents like cyclone or floods, and it has proven to work. So we are now in the phase of scaling up that product, beyond Fiji, where it was tested, and covering a range of Pacific Island countries.
So just walk me through how that works. So the product is for a specific sector. Is it for those in agriculture or fishing, or is there different products for?
So the product is reaching populations and actually engaging those activities, as you say, because it's a parametric risk insurance. The payment is triggered by the occurrence of a specific, climate risk, and so basically it has a kind of an automatic implementation of the payment due to the measurement of that incident. So it has a kind of benefit of being very efficient, effective, reaching directly the local population. So between 10-15 days after the incident.
10-15 days. Okay.
And it is actually protecting, smallholder farmers, fishermen, MSMEs, and again, I think it's very promising because it has proven to work, and we are scaling that up now in the Pacific and taking that approach to some countries in Africa.
Great. So let's say I'm an individual in Fiji and I want to buy this. So I go onto my phone. You mentioned a mobile wallet. So how would I actually purchase the insurance? And then when it comes to the claims, I'm just interested to see how the claim payment gets to the policyholder.
Sure. So the insurance product is underwritten by local insurance companies with whom we have been working to design the product. Okay. It is delivered through. One of the challenges is to write to find the right delivery mechanism, distribution channel, so that you gain in efficiency to reach the maximum number of clients. So we are using local farmers cooperative, coffee cooperatives, sometimes financial institution like the Tonga Development Bank, who has a large outreach to local population. And so the product is distributed through the channel, but basically provided through mobile wallets, sometimes through bank accounts. And then the payment is triggered by the incidence of the climate risk happening. So basically it is providing very quick compensation to those populations based on the measurement of the climate risk incident happening. What I wanted to say is, one of the exciting sessions at COP was about the testing of anticipatory payments, anticipatory action, which would enable to disburse 20% of the claim ahead of the cyclone to enable the population to prepare for, basically minimizing the impact of the cyclone when it hits. So we have tested, that product on a small scale. But I think if it's proven to be working, so we are also planning to expand that approach. I think the purpose here is how, again, you strengthen the resilience of local population. And we know that by bringing the flexibility of anticipatory payments, you're actually helping those populations to better prepare to weather the impact of the climate risk incident. But at the same time, you also have huge gain in efficiency. $1 disbursed before the cyclone is saving $7 disbursed post-cyclone. So there is an efficiency gain, which I think is very important.
That's fantastic, because I used to work in the insurance sector, the traditional insurance sector in the UK, and one of the challenges always is that when it comes to that point when you need to claim, and it's then a human that is deciding whether that claim, there's always an issue with trust with insurance companies. But what you're saying here is it's an automatic claim payout. So if the climate event, falls above a certain severity level, the payment is automatically triggered.
Exactly.
And I think that can really help, increase trust.
And what can really increase the trust as well is in the context of anticipatory action. Yeah. What we decided based on the research that we do with a UN Office of Risk, it's if there is the cyclone deviates, for example, and doesn't hit the targeted areas, the areas which have been insured in the way that it was anticipated to be, then, and if the 20% initial payment is more than what they would be eligible to, then they keep that payment. So there is also a factor of really helping those populations, building trust by immediate payment, but also by making sure that if they invest in protecting themselves in anticipation of the cyclone landing, they can keep, that benefit even if the cyclone deviates, which I think is psychologically is very important to build that trust.
And it makes sense, right? Because if you're giving, I say $1 before might save $7 afterwards.
Yeah.
So for the insurer trying to reduce their actual claims paid, that anticipatory payment of 20% can be very effective.
Exactly. And it was one of the hard points to negotiate with the insurance industry, saying,
because I've
this
never heard
is
it before.
counterintuitive to what would normally be logical,
sure.
but at the same time, psychologically, it's important to build the trust of the local population.
I think for consumers, right, insurance isn't tangible.
Yeah.
So being able to see benefits before, let's say, an actual peril or insured event occurs. I've seen other things with health insurers, right? If you have the smart watch and you're exercising well or having a good diet, you can get certain benefits. So trying to give value to a policyholder before a claim occurs, can really help to build trust. So that's something really interesting. How are you planning to scale these tests in other countries? You mentioned from Fiji, you're looking at other Pacific Island nations. Is there other work in Sub-Saharan Africa or elsewhere?
So, that approach we are taking to 7 or 8 countries in the Pacific now. So it is already being scaled up in Fiji. It was also tested in Vanuatu and Tonga, but we are taking that to other countries in the Pacific. So that's going to cover most of the countries where we are present. But we have also done feasibility studies around the deployment of parametric risk insurance in certain countries in Africa. So we did that in Senegal, in Malawi, in Niger, and in Sierra Leone. And I think we chose those countries because we had strong country presence at UNCDF. We had teams on the ground. We were already working on a lot of digital finance deployments. So based on those feasibility studies, and they were basically presented at the COP, we are now ready to kind of engage with the private sector insurance, industries in those countries, the regulators, the development community to kind of start to develop product and test them. In Sierra Leone, we are actively working with smallholder farmers, so we're going to test some solution there. And in other countries, we have different focus, but in all of those countries, we have digital finance deployment. So we will test and expand that product in those countries, and then go beyond that. And we are doing that in close partnership with the Global Shield, with the V20 agenda, where we want to position CDF as a technical partners in order to basically bring solution for the last mile, and complementing what others are doing, obviously, but focusing on what has been the DNA and comparative advantage of CDF, working with the private sector through market system approach, to deploy a solution at scale. And in this case, obviously, looking at public-private partnership to link some of this product to social protection agendas, because we also realize that to reach the most vulnerable, you need to have some level of subsidy on the premium, which is something that we tested with a social protection, agenda in Fiji, where we partner with them to subsidize a premium of that service, of that product, and we will do the same in Africa. So, but I think we're excited to expand that because we really see the relevance of that product in the context of the climate change discussion.
Fantastic, and I'll look forward to following, the new news and the scale up of that project. So, away from insurance now, looking at remittances. I read an article that you co-authored for the World Economic Forum back in 2021. And one of the sentences you said that really interested me was that UNCDF is leading a new effort and a 360-degree global effort to reimagine how remittances work. Now, if we look at Tonga or Samoa, countries that you've mentioned in the Pacific, that are heavily reliant on remittances. Now we're at the end of 2023, looking into 2024. Are you able to shine new light on UNCDF's work on the remittance space?
Sure. So we have been active in this space of remittances, and this 360-degree kind of comments was linked to the realization that remittances still remains a missed opportunities to contribute to the SDG and development in general. Because there are still much more that can be done, and that's and we have been active to address and try to fulfill the potential we see. First we realized that supporting the formalization of remittances flows and digitalize them from end to end offers tremendous opportunities in many ways. First, reducing the cost. If you want to fulfill the SDGs goal to reduce the cost to a maximum 3%, that will be achieved through digital solution. That's a prerequisite. The second thing is that once you formalize them, you can really link them to a suite of services that couldn't be possible otherwise. And we have been working on is how can we leverage remittance flow to basically expand the opportunities of the migrant and the families to be provided a wider suite of services, and I will mention a few of them. First, once you have formal remittances provided digitally, you can easily link that to insurance products. You could actually provide climate risk insurance, to the families back home, through those means. You can link that to access to pension fund benefits. I mean, there have been studies which show how migrants forfeit huge amount of pension right they have because they are not equipped to receive them. So that's second one. You can use the data trail of those remittance flows to create an alternative credit scoring and credit worthiness of the migrant and their family. So empower families at home, members of the family, to be able to borrow from a local financial service providers because there is a kind of a track record of regular flows of remittances. So I think there are a lot of digital services in support to migrants and the families that you can provide, through digital means. So when we think of a 360 suite of services, this is what we have in mind. And remittances are able to kind of support SDG one family at a time. And that's a power. And the numbers are staggering. You talk about close to $700 billion formal remittances a year. They are counter-cyclical during time of crisis. They continue to grow. And there was a small dip during COVID, but very quickly they went back and they went beyond where they were before. And so they are a tremendous tool for resilience for vulnerable population or for migrants in general and their families. Sometimes, some migrate for economic opportunities, but there is a huge potential of, increasing the resilience, well-being, and economic opportunities for migrants and the families through remittances. And we are actively working to support that agenda.
Excellent. Do you think there's enough talk about that within the sector in really promoting digital technology for improving the efficiency of remittances?
So, I think it has gained momentum. There is more talk about it than there used to be 10 years ago. I think there is a realization that it's a huge capital flows, which also has macroeconomic benefits. Formalized flow of remittances can increase the balance of payment status of the countries. Being able to keep some of the remittances in foreign currency that we have been helping to do in Ethiopia can also increase the forex, status of the recipient countries. So there are a lot of, benefit that are being recognized. So yes, I think there is a growing recognition that is a fantastic lever to support the SDGs while really kind of improving the value proposition for all these people. And you talk about, hundreds of millions of people and the families. So actually, it's very, very powerful agenda.
Absolutely. So we've talked about insurance. We've touched on remittances. So I'd like to talk about another project that UNCDF are running, the Clean Start project, and scaling up energy financing. I know there's been a lot of talk about this, across the sector and in COP. I've seen a lot of sessions focused on this. So what is the Clean Start project and what's the goal?
So I should start by saying that we have decided through our more integrated strategy on inclusive digital economy that we wouldn't talk about acronyms anymore. So we don't talk about Clean Start anymore. It's called IDE, kind of inclusive digital economy energy, part of our work. So, but we have been actively involved in that agenda for the past 10 years. We have deployed, I think, close to 2 million solutions around clean energy or energy transition, in the countries where we work, and it has been across Asia and Africa, and reaching close to 10 million people. So basically, again, what we have been doing is using our kind of digital focus and digital expertise and capital mandate to provide, through market system approach, solution to help the transition to cleaner energy solution in LDCs. So basically looking at solar home system and using pay-as-you-go solution, which enable the kind of installment-based payment for those solutions, so making them affordable to the household in those countries. We have been looking as well as productive use of clean energy, microgrid, or some of the productive use of solar panels. We have been looking more recently at cook stove, which also is very important. The combined impact on CO2 emission of non-renewable wood-based cook stove is assessed to be equivalent to the aviation industry globally. So, wow. And also it has a huge impact on damaging ecosystem, obviously, in those countries. So helping those populations who are affected by climate change and needs those kind of natural assets, for their livelihood, to transition into cleaner energy source or, cooking energy source, it can be very impactful. So Clean Energy, agenda for UNCDF has focused on those potential and again, working with a range of financial service provider, pay-as-you-go companies to deploy those solutions at scale, and combining, the technical assistance and grants we give them to develop innovation with blended finance solutions, concessional lendings, to try to help them grow their business.
Amazing. Henri, it's been a real pleasure to have you on the show. We have here the Social Impact Journal. So if you could write one page in this journal for a young professional that is maybe just coming out of university and going into the UN or into the digital financial inclusion space, what piece of advice would you give to them?
It's an interesting question. I could take almost any product that we have developed and look at the journey of how we develop solutions and bring them to markets. I mean, for me, that's an interesting story. So if you look at let's talk again the parametric risk insurance, because it's one of the recent examples. But again, that could apply to design of the right products around remittances, around clean energy solution, around MSME loans, is the journey of trying to really understand what is going to be scalable and impactful in the market where we work. And I'm saying that because, again, looking at the parametric risk insurance product, it's really interesting to see the journey. First, understanding the nature of the risk, quantify it, sit down with the private sector actors for the design of the product, engage with the regulator to create a sandbox so that that product can be tested in a safe environment, which reassure the regulators that they control and they understand the product and its implication, and the private sector that they can test it while having this endorsement from the regulator. And we did that in Fiji, and after the 18 conditions of the sandbox were fulfilled, the product went to market. In that process, bring a very strong client-centric design and feedback loop to understand that the product which is being offered is meeting the needs of those clients. Then going to market and see how it can be scaled up. So that journey for me, which is at the heart of this market system approach, is a very powerful one. It's one which required, strong feet on the ground, engagement with a range of factors in those countries, building the trust with the private sector, the trust with the regulators, and being able to see how we can accompany the emergence and growth of those products through, again, the kind of capital and investment mandate we have, the deployment of concessional lending, de-risking, guarantees. And so that journey itself would be what I would write about. And I could use the parametric risk insurance product as an example. I could use other products. And for me, that's a kind of DNA of the way UNCDF works and how it brings solutions which are very complementary to other part of the UN system, but again, linked to our ability to work with the private sector, work with the regulators, and basically bring this kind of market system solution to support the SDGs in those countries.
Amazing. That's a great piece of advice, and thank you so much for being on the show.
My pleasure.
Thank you for watching the episode with Henri. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to follow us on our social media channels and subscribe. Episodes are released every Monday at 9 a.m. GMT on the Social Impact Journal. Thank you.